Hi, welcome to the program. Thanks for watching. I have a couple of guests with me today that I'm really excited to interview. I've already learned a lot from them, and there's a lot more to learn, and hopefully you'll come away from this show today thinking about recovery and that process a little differently. I had Diane Reynolds on the show from Provoking Hope. It was a wonderful interview. She's the founder and leader of that organization with her husband, Bob. And today I have with me a couple of certified recovery mentors, peer-to-peer counselors. With me I have Timmy Flanagan and Alli Highsmith. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you.
This is wonderful to have people that have faced this themselves and are helping others do that. So let's talk a little bit about Provoking Hope. Let's come at it from how you first got involved with Provoking Hope. Would you start with Timmy?
Sure. Well, when I first, I was involved with chemical dependency here in McMinnville, and somebody just suggested, they pointed across the street and said, hey, there's a place over there. You know, it's nice, safe, clean environment, and they have support. Me coming out of my addiction, I really, I didn't know how to even act in a pro-social manner. So I went over and I met Diane and a couple of the other people that worked there, and I found a great place that was supportive of me. And to be truthful, I kind of hid in the back corner for almost a year, just kind of getting familiar with myself and my sobriety, and thankfully Diane suggested that I take a class on working with other addicts, the CRM training, and that's where that's where I started this,
Well, that's the beginning of a long story, and also the end of a long story, I'm sure, too. But thanks for giving us that introduction to you and Provoking Hope. So you didn't come as a counselor.
No.
You came in the front door needing recovery.
As a client, yes.
A client. All right.
Yes.
All right, Alli, how about you? How did you come to Provoking
My story
Hope?
is similar to Timmy's. I was also involved with outpatient treatment at chemical dependency here in Yamhill County, and I wasn't driving. I had lost my license as a result of my felony charges that I'd recently received, and I lived in Amity, so I would ride the bus into town every day to, participate in my treatment and my meetings outside of treatment. And for me, Provoking Hope was a safe place to be in between appointments and other scheduled things that I had to do. I also heard about it word of mouth. It was very centrally located. This was at the old office over, right across the street from the chemical dependency building. They always had coffee. They had a phone. They had a computer. There was other people I knew who were going to be, focusing on the same thing I was focusing on. It was a safe place to be where I felt like I wasn't going to run into, old people, places, and things just roaming around town.
Okay. Shelters from those things. Timmy, you said that you really weren't aware of the resource of the recovery community before you started.
Oh, no, not at all. I really, I had heard the words 12-step, and I'd been to chemical dependency a time or two, okay? I didn't really, I thought that when it came to me recovering from my addiction, that I was alone, that I just had to do the paperwork that I got from a certain agency, and that was going to help me. And, and instead I found, by walking in the doors of Provoking Hope, I found this wonderful community. It wasn't just Provoking Hope itself, but it was a recovery community. People who had been through the same things that I'd been through, were going through the same things that I was going through. And it made me feel less alone. And, it kind of helped me a lot.
What's your clean and sober date?
February 21st, 2013.
Is that the first and last date? I didn't mean last. Is that your first clean and sober date?
Well, there's been a lot of times where I tried to stop using drugs, numerous times. Like I said, not knowing outside supports, and not having those supports, it just led right back to use. Now, February 21st was, yes, that was the day that I really began working a recovery program.
So that held for you?
Yes.
When you picked that date as your clean and sober date, you've been able to hold that. I've been online on the drug and alcohol awareness page, and someone asked everybody to post their recovery date. And there's dates there from 1985, there's dates there from last week.
Yes.
And we talked about this before the show. There's one picture of a man's calf, and he has tattooed there February 11th, 2012. And then there's a line through 2012, and below it's 2015. Right. So this happens.
Yes,
people
it
set a
does.
date, you fail. You don't stay on recovery. How about yourself, Alli? What's your clean and sober date?
My clean date is March 28th, 2012, and for me, that's the only clean date I've ever had. The literature from the 12-step fellowship that I am part of tells me that if I do my best to live the principles of the fellowship in all areas of my life, I don't ever have to use again. So that's what I do on a daily basis, is do my best to live recovery inside and outside of the rooms of 12-step fellowship.
And yet you see people coming in the door that have failed many times.
Yes.
And what do you tell them? Timmy, what do you tell them?
I tell them that you can do it. That, you know, that don't worry about. I won't even call it a failure.
Okay.
Don't worry about
Absolutely
that
not.
Change
slip.
that word.
Don't worry about that slip.
Okay.
You know, we all live in 24 hours, and if we can make it this 24 hours, maybe we can make it the next. There's no guarantee. You know.
I tell my clients all the time that, you know, you may have lost your clean date, but you haven't lost all the knowledge that you gained in the time that you were, you know, that you were given it your best shot.
Great.
You have to pick yourself up and try again. And I like what Timmy said. It's not a failure. It's a slip.
Yeah.
You know, we've slipped up, and it's not. There's no shame in relapse. The shame is if you don't pick yourself up and dust yourself off and try again.
I agree.
Alli, you talked about your clients, and as certified recovery mentors, you have a caseload.
Yes.
And how did you get to this point of being certified? Can you talk a little bit about what that training was like, Timmy?
Oh, you know, so I took a class that, you know, up in Portland, and the class mainly pointed out the fact that I have the experience now on how I got clean, and I can share that experience with my clients, and that's really all the knowledge that I need. Other than, say, ethics, you know, there's some ethics involved, you know, and there's, you know, some other things, boundaries, you know. So really it taught me, one, yes, my professional ethics, and two, my boundaries that I needed to set to protect myself and my clients, you know.
And you talked earlier with me before the show they talked about overcoming personal biases.
Yes.
What did that feel like? How did that affect you?
Well, you know, there was a point when I had biases, and I said, well, I won't work with somebody who's done that. But then I realized that that I've done a lot of things too in my life, you know, and people were willing to work with me. And so that person who comes to me deserves that chance. They deserve that help. And any help I can offer, I give freely.
Alli, what surprised you, or what did you learn from the training? You went into that with this expectation. How did you come out of it?
I really enjoyed the training. I had a great time at the training. I don't know that I was surprised by anything. I just really appreciated the opportunity to participate in the training. When I came to Provoking Hope, I came, like I said, initially it was a safe place. Then I started volunteering and turning in my hours, you know, to pay off my probation fees every month, because it costs money to be on probation. So I had, you know, I felt unemployable. I felt all these feelings around that, and Provoking Hope gave me a chance. I started out, you know, cleaning, and then I moved up to answering the phones, and you know, whatever Diane or whoever would give me to do, I was grateful for the opportunity to do any of it, because I felt so unemployable and unworthy at that time, and so I was given an opportunity. The money that I used to pay for my CRM training came from cans and bottles. We did, you know, numerous can and bottle drives. I spent endless hours turning those cans in the machines all around town, you know. So to me, that was the most valuable part of it, was that Provoking Hope was willing to give me a chance to do something that I felt so, I felt so grateful to be trusted with anything, and to be given a chance to follow this new path. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So I was just so grateful to participate.
From what I'm hearing, you built that trust. You earned that trust.
I don't know. I feel like, you know, Diane really teaches us that everybody is trustworthy until they've proven that they're not trustworthy.
Yes.
And it's so easy to not trust people coming in off the streets. And so that's something I've really taken from being a part of Provoking Hope. You know, Diane tells a story all the time. You know, she'll give people her car keys all the time and say, can you run out to the car and get my purse, or whatever, you know. And for people that we see, that's a really, you know, people don't give you their car keys and ask you to grab their purse because of our past behavior. But Diane's really taught me, you know, everyone is lovable and trustworthy, you know, and until they give you a reason to not trust them personally, you know, we don't judge them on what they may have done 3 weeks ago. Right now, they've shown the courage to walk through this door and say, I want to do something different. And until they give us a reason to not trust them, we trust them. So I feel like I guess I earned the trust by walking through the doors and saying that I wanted to do something different.
Wow, that's really inspiring. I'd like talked about before we started that one of the purposes of this show is to make it clear to anyone that is looking to get on the path to recovery that Provoking Hope is a place that will walk with them, that will be right there from the very start. And the stories you just told, I think, really illustrates that. The next thing I wanted to help anyone in the audience, if they know someone that is looking to get on the path to recovery, or even if it isn't that they need to get on the path to recovery, but haven't come to the place where they are willing to walk to that door themselves, what can a parent do? What can a peer do for someone that is having trouble with their lives due to drugs or alcohol? Timmy?
Well, so I'm a parent of a struggling alcoholic addict. For me, I show my son in the things that I do. Okay, and I will make comments, you know, about my recovery in my life, you know, so that he knows what's going on with it. I have found that by saying, I want you to go do this, I get resistance. When I can show the benefits of sobriety and the changes it's made in my life, and I do that everywhere I go, okay, in everything that I do. When I can show that, people respond to it positively.
Alli, anything to add to that on how someone that's wanting to help someone, how can they reach out to them in an effective way? Or maybe what's ineffective is, you were talking about you should, shaming. What do you find is effective?
Well, I know that as a parent, my kids are still young, and I feel like, you know, hopefully what I'm doing is guiding them in a different path than the path I've taken. But being involved with lots of family relationships, addiction is absolutely a family disease. It affects everyone in the family. One of my favorite analogies that I've heard is, you know, that when someone gets into recovery, it's like if there was a car accident and the EMTs came and they only, you know, focused on the one person. And so, you know, everybody else in the family is still kind of caught up in those sick behaviors. And it's the same thing. If the parents are trying to get better, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is educate yourself. You know, you can tell your kid, I want you to do this, you need to do this. You hear about tough love, and tough love is being tough on your kids, but I think it's tough because it's so hard to practice. But it is probably the most effective, you know, that enabling piece is what keeps people out there. People aren't going to change if they have no consequences to their behavior. That's what got me on the road to change is, you know, finally feeling those consequences to my behavior. I don't think I would have changed had I not had some pretty serious things start happening in my life.
One thing I heard you say was that if you can be part of a dynamic that is unhealthy. So one thing, maybe a person is not a user, but part of that dynamic might do well to take a look at themselves and see how they are contributing to the problem.
And there's
Educate
family
yourself.
support groups.
Ah.
There is family, there's the Al-Anon, Nar-Anon. Those are support groups for the families of people or the loved ones of people affected by addiction. And you don't have to wait until your kid or your significant other, whoever, is in recovery. Start recovering yourself, and you'll learn the tools for how to deal with that person who's still on whatever part of that, still in active addiction.
When someone walks into the front door of Provoking Hope, from what I've learned, there's just a lot of doors in the background waiting for you to direct people to.
Yes.
And one of them is DHS. Alli, could you talk about your experience with DHS?
So I was involved with DHS. Because of my my criminal charges, I was placed on no contact. A judge ordered no contact with my
your
children, who at the time were 6 and 10 years old. I was still allowed to have contact with my husband, but I was not allowed to have contact with my children. So I stayed with family members away from the home. The judge that ordered that no contact said I could get with my lawyer and petition to have that modified so I could have some contact. And when I went back in front of the judge to do that, the release officer at the time and the DA were both against it. And they said, the evidence was that, I was a convicted thief, I was a known drug user, and the judge listened to those opinions and said that he not only was not going to modify that order, but he wanted DHS to open a case on my family immediately.
So, Alli, when you say serious consequences, this is what you're talking about.
This is what
There's
yeah.
nothing more serious than not being able to see your kids.
Right.
And I had DHS knocking at my door before, and I was able to. I felt like at the time I was able to beat them. I told them I know my rights. I don't have to give you this. And what I was really doing was just. I wasn't ready. I was in denial. I was protecting my sickness is what I was doing. I gave them just enough. I opened the door and said, look, my house is clean. My kids are in school. Basically you don't have enough evidence. And they didn't. But they told me themselves, you're right. We don't have enough evidence of abuse or neglect, but we do feel that we'll be seeing you again. And they did. And they were the enemy. And, in my mind, they were the enemy. They were out to take my children. And what I learned in having that case was that open DHS case. My kids were not ever removed from my care, but I did have a DHS case, where they were basically involved in my life, telling me this is what you need to do to get this case closed. And what I learned was that they were there to protect my children. And to help me, connect me with the resources that I needed to be the best parent that I could be.
And that worked. That you
That
got benefit from that.
absolutely helped. And that's what got me, that's what got me on the path. They told me, you need to go to chemical dependency and get an outpatient treatment. We want you to go to three 12-step meetings a week. These are the things that we want you to do. And they helped, getting into the 12-step fellowship is where the real change began. But they were that was the catalyst for change for me, was that I guess I wasn't able to be in denial anymore. I was kidding myself that my kids were okay when they really weren't. What kids really want is their parents to be there, and I was spending most of my days behind a closed door. Yes, my kids were fed and clothed, and they had, they went to school all the time and this and that, but they didn't have what they really needed, and that was me being present and participating in their lives.
It's so great you're here to tell this story.
It's heavy stuff. It's
It
really
is.
heavy. And the thing for me that I have to remember, and I be grateful for every day in my life, is that for me that's what that was enough. There's a lot of people who have their kids removed and still it's not enough. And you hear people talking about, I had to hit my bottom. I had to hit my bottom. And what I've learned about my bottom is that, I hit my bottom when I was ready to put my shovel down and stop digging. So, everybody's bottom is different. And sometimes people pick that shovel up and dig some more when they thought they've hit their bottom. But you can always put that shovel down and stop digging.
So you seem very well qualified to talk peer to peer to people about what's going on. Tell me a little bit about how that works at Provoking Hope. Someone comes into the door, and how do they get paired up with people like you? And how many are there of you? And how does that going? How many people do you have? And tell me about some of your, not really revealing, we don't want to invade anybody's privacy, but just give us a feel for your caseload and how it goes. Do you see people slipping a lot? Do you have people walking out with a whole new lives? Just give us an overview of how that looks for you, Timmy, on your caseload.
Well, see, I've seen both sides of that. Okay, I have guys that are doing so well. I feel like saying, well, why don't you help me? Okay. But unfortunately, I do have gentlemen that are struggling, and without going into intimate details, what I can say is that, well, I don't know. What I can say is that, the guys that are doing well, I say you're doing well. The guys that are struggling, you came here, you're doing well. Okay? Because as long as they're coming through that door, they have the desire to make that change.
Alli, can you give us some sort of, what's it feel like being a CRM? How do you, when you think of these people that you are in intimate contact with, what goes through your mind as you sit back and you think about what you're doing? What are some of the highs and the lows?
So one of my, I like what you said about us walking through things with our clients. That's one of the greatest things that I have to offer my clients, is that I am fully aware that there's going to be slips, there's going to be hard times. I'm not here to tell you that there's not, but I am here to tell you that I'm willing to hold your hand through whatever we're going to go through.
Right.
And one of my favorite, I'm a certified mentor, but another title that I have at Provoking Hope is I'm the Responsible Moms Program Coordinator. So in that program, I work specifically with moms who are struggling with addiction or other barriers. Maybe it's DHS involvement. These are the things that I get to walk through with them. I had a mother who was pregnant, who was still using opiates. And she came into my office and was, I can't stop using. I'm afraid to go to my doctor because I'm afraid that she's going to turn me in to child welfare. I don't know what to do. And so I was able to guide her in the fact that you need to go see your doctor because you can't stop using on your own at this point. That would be more dangerous for the baby than to continue using, which is a sad fact. And I'm not going to tell you that the doctor isn't going to call, child welfare on you. The likely fact is that she's going to. But I am here to tell you that I will go to that doctor's appointment with you. I will go, I will hold your hand. And just because child welfare gets involved doesn't mean they're going to take your child from you. It may or may not happen, but I'm going to be here to walk through that with you every step of the way. The harsh realities is the doctor's probably is going to call child welfare. If they take your child, it's not the end of the world. You can take the steps. You can walk through that each day.
And you're there to tell them that's your experience.
To hold their hand through the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. That's the most beautiful part of it.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. I'd like to go to another level now. We've talked about inviting people that are looking for recovery, looking to re-recover, and then also people that know people that need to be on the path, how to help them. Let's talk to the people in the audience about those people that want to support this. to support Provoking Hope, support people getting on the path to recovery, how can they do that?
So I would say, come in and see us.
Really?
Come and talk
Walk
to
in
us.
off the street
Absolutely.
and
Come in.
get comfortable.
Yes.
Come in,
We
sit down.
love people to come in and have us tell them about Provoking Hope. And
Okay. Baker and 10th, just off the east side. What's the address on
213.
213
Or East
Northeast
10th.
10th.
Northeast 10th?
Yep.
213 Northeast 10th,
Correct.
just off Baker on 10th.
Mhm.
Okay, so visit,
Yes.
get acquainted.
Come in.
All right. I happen to know there's a golf tournament this weekend.
Yes.
Let's
Great.
do some PR for that right now.
Sure.
How could someone come and participate in that? Come in and see
So
you,
it's-
buy a
it's
ticket?
Right, it's at the Microbrook Golf Course. You can come in and get tickets, I believe, but just show up.
Show up at Michael Book, what time? Noon.
Yeah.
Sure. That's not our department,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yes.
We don't have all the details, but
Sorry.
if you come into the office, we
Yeah.
can get you the details.
I think it's noon at Michael Book. You can
Right.
play golf, best ball, you can get on a team, or if you're not a golfer, or even if you aren't a golfer, you can still play golf and they count this the best ball. They don't have to count your one that went in the street.
Right. Right.
But there's other activities to participate in pretty much all day there at Michael Book. There's a silent auction in the evening,
Yes.
and so
I know we have two main, fundraisers a year, which is the golf tournament, and
Yeah.
then we have our, it's been a night in Vienna, night in New Orleans, night in the 70s.
Yes, that was great.
But I also I think it's important for people to know that Provoking Hope is nonprofit. All of our, all of the services we provide in our office are free. We never charge a fee to our clients. Not everything that we refer out to is free. But all of our operations costs come from these fundraisers that we do. So, like I said, those can drives, financial donations, I guess, always help
Yeah.
because that's where all of our operations costs come from. And it costs money to do what we do.
Yes, it does.
And I think, the faith of our director and a lot of our people really gets us through. But
Yes.
miracles happen at Provoking Hope every single day. So I don't know. It's really exciting. We love to tell people about it because it's so exciting to be in on that. This is ground floor stuff.
you
Going up.
I went when I met you, Timmy. Diane took me through a door there where the recovery counselors had their mentors, had their desks, and
Right.
you're getting pretty full there.
Yes.
It's going to be time to move again?
That's a great hope.
Yeah. Okay.
We have expanded probably fivefold since I started going there.
Yeah.
We moved into this new building a few months ago, and yes, we're already getting crowded. And, so there's on the average of 1,000 people coming through the door every month.
Say that again.
On the average, 1,000 people coming through the doors every month. Okay, coming in. They're coming in for, even if it's just for a safe place to hang out, safe place to have lunch, to meet with the CRM or to find even clean clothes or resources, housing resources, things like that, just referrals here or there, so it's pretty powerful.
We didn't spend a lot of time outlining the problem. It's huge. It's around us, and we need to get behind people, helping people get back onto recovery. So I'm so glad you were here with us today. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your courage. And it must take courage to face these difficult situations with people. And
It's
I
a
know.
great act of courage for someone to walk through the doors at our office.
And you have a spiritual program there that offers a lot of hope and a lot of faith in that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I learned a lot here today. I'm changed. I hope you are too. And I hope it changes you in a way that brings about more recovery in our community. Thanks for being here today.